Hey everybody, Mr. B here. Um, Welcome everybody from the drawing club that is watching, and if I have any um, old school subscribers, hey guys, thanks for hanging out with me on this Saturday. I was gonna stream yesterday, but I wasn't able to. I had some things I had to do, so I did promise those of you that are in the drawing club, I promised you I would be back today to stream, so here I am. Yay! Try to hold your excitement in. Anyways, I'm gonna go over, like I always do, what we've done in the past couple of streams, and then we are going to, if you can look up in the title here, we're gonna go over the torso. So we're gonna kind of shift from what we've been doing, which is the head anatomy and the face anatomy, head shapes and face shapes. And we're going to switch gears a little bit and go over to now start working on the body. And then eventually we'll go back to, the head and the face when we start getting into more specific details. So this is episode 6, the torso. Again, everyone out in virtual land, thank you for watching, whether you're watching live or whether you're watching this recording. So let's talk about some things that we have gone over. I'm going to switch over to my big view here. This was our last stream. We talked about the face shapes. And I keep telling you, and you're going to hear the same things even when we get into the body or the torso, as we're going to get into today. But simple shapes, we're going to learn how to break apart the anatomy, the head anatomy, the torso anatomy, arms, legs, everything into basic shapes. And you're going to be surprised at how easy it makes being creative when you draw, right? That's one of the things we've talked about in our club. We get stuck in a style, we get stuck with a character, and we just draw it over and over again. But these techniques will hopefully get you into a rhythm or habits where you can start getting really creative. So we talked about the face. You can see over there on the right-hand side. And let me grab my handy dandy over here. Whoops. Over here on that right-hand side, you can see that that is our basic shape for a head. Those are the basic shapes that make up our face anatomy. And then just like anything else, we start messing with those shapes. We start distorting them. We start exaggerating them, squeezing them, stretching them out, doing all those things. And then we come up with characters. A lot of you guys have asked me about characters, character development, character design. Well, this is a big part of that. So that's what we talked about last stream, right? And like I said, we're shifting gears. I don't want to go back through all the streams. They're there on the channel if you want to go back and see them. Again, we talked about head anatomy, head shapes, face anatomy, face shapes, and now we're going to move over to torsos. And I am going to tell you why we are going to do that here in a minute. So torsos, this is one of the most, I don't want to say important, but this is one of those aha moments that I had as an artist when I was drawing. And I remember watching, Jim Lee is a comic book artist that I absolutely love. And I remember watching some of his tutorials. And he had this great way of explaining how to draw torsos. Because remember, I like comic books, and comic books are very dynamic. What does that word dynamic means? It means it's it involves a lot of movement and action. And it tells a story through the movement. Again, whether a character's sad, or whether they're strong and proud, or whether they're throwing a punch or they're running, you can tell a lot just through the way that you draw a character without even using any words. So I'm going to sort of go through that technique, and you're going to see just learning this technique, these, again, basic shapes, and how to put them together, and how to draw them, and then how you can twist and turn them to create that dynamic effect that I was just talking about. And dynamic, I mean telling a story through your visual design. And that's what, we are as artists. We're visual designers. As artists, we're not writers. We're not writing out the story and telling people exactly what's going on. We have to do that through our drawings, through our shapes, again. Is the character strong, sad, happy, confused, embarrassed, shy? Are they tough? Are they weak? And we do that through character design. All right, so I'm going to go through the torso right now. So let's jump back into this. One of the things, and I'm going to curve my pad there for a second. One of the things you're going to hear me say, it's kind of like an egg shape. So there's two pieces to the torso that we're going to draw. So one is the upper torso, your rib cage, and then the other is the bottom pelvis. And I'm going to show you how these fit together. So let's just, again, draw some basic shapes. So right here would be the upper torso. So I'm just going to draw, sort of looks like an egg. I don't know where I came up with that. Maybe, again, it was that Jim Lee tutorial. I honestly can't remember. But I like to, again, remember, draw in 3 dimensions. So this is sort of the torso. Then we come down, and then it kind of crosses over here. Again, I'm just going to give it a little shading just so we know, again, so that it's in 3 dimensions. So this is the top part of the torso, right? And then the bottom half is here. This is the bottom half. This is our pelvis. This is our pelvis. So I'm going to show you in just a minute why it's so important to have these specific 2 parts. And again, I'm going really fast, so don't judge me as far as how well this looks. I'm trying to do some speed sketching here for you guys. So that's your basic torso and pelvis shape. I think this upper torso is maybe a little too long. I'm gonna just shorten it up a little bit. But anyways, so that's your basic shape, right? And so this top part here is like your rib cage. And this bottom part here is like your pelvis. So why are those 2 specifically important? Well, because these 2 represent bone, right? And again, why is that important? Why is it important to say, okay, well, this is bone and this is bone? Well, because it's hard, it's rigid, it won't move. So there's only a certain amount of ways that you can move that or twist it when you draw it. So it's important to know that that is rigid. So let's jump into. So, we don't just have a rib cage and a pelvis floating by each other. How do they connect? Well, they connect with the flesh, this fleshy part here. And I'm going to change colors here so you can see this. Let me grab my color picker. Make it this like bright purple. We have this fleshy part here that kind of comes in between. Right here. And I promise you, we're gonna dive into this here in a minute. Why all this is important. Right, let me make that line a little darker. I want the outline of those to be darker. There we go. I want you to be able to see this. So, why is that important? So that's flesh. It's soft. So big deal. What does that mean, Mr. B? Why is it of any importance that we make the distinction that some are bone and some are flesh? Right, and then we have this line down here. Here's why that's important. Because that's where you twist and you turn, right? So again, when we're talking about creating characters and being dynamic, they can't twist, you know, right here. They can't twist. I mean, you can kind of, even at home as you're watching, I know it sounds silly, but sometimes you have to reflect. You're just so used to doing things that you don't stop to think about, okay, yeah, I never thought that I can only sort of move this way or that way. So that's where your characters twist and turn, is this fleshy area right here in the center, right? Not up in the top, not in your pelvis. So that's, you turn this way, you turn this way, you bend over, you stretch out. So that's where all of that dynamic movement happens. So again, we can sort of, you can oversimplify that. Let me go back to my regular. Sometimes it's easy just to start with a cylinder. Right? Sometimes if you need to visualize a movement, which sometimes I do, I have to sort of visualize it before I draw it. I like to just draw these cylinders. Right? And again, these are just representing the rib cage and the pelvis. I go, okay, well, this is my pelvis, and this is my rib cage. And again, you guys don't have to, I like to kind of just make things three-dimensional just so I can understand how they exist in whatever space I'm drawing them. You guys definitely don't have to do that. But there's a simplified version, right? That's just a simplified version of the torso. Again, you can just, that's the rib cage and pelvis. So let's jump into, I'm going to add another layer. Let's shut that down. Actually, I like to keep these kind of, let me resize these. I like you guys to kind of just always be able to see those. So let me scale those, edit. And we'll just keep those kind of off to the side over here. And we'll go over. So when I talked about the egg shape, here's what I mean when I talk about the egg shape. So the egg shape is the upper torso. I just call it the egg shape, but you got to get used to drawing, and you know, you can, however you need to do this, but you want to get used to drawing something like this. This is just a basic torso. All right, let me think. So, and you can kind of draw the ribs here. This is kind of a three-quarter view, and this is how I practice usually, these three-quarter views. So this is your egg shape. Just draw this over and over again, over and over again. And then up at the top, you have your little circle up here for where the net goes. You have the line that's coming down the center. All right, and this is sort of your basic, your standard torso. And I like to, again, draw it in 3 dimensions. You can kind of shade this underneath. But there's a torso. Again, that's a basic shape of a torso. Again, we talked about the basic shapes, but that's something you want to practice over and over again, just to get that basic shape of a torso. And again, we talked about the basic shape of the pelvis. This is something you want to just keep practicing over and over again. Over and over again. Just practice this shape. And this is a 3/4 view, right? It's not completely sideways. It's not completely straight. It's 3/4 view. And that's just how I personally practice. Again, you guys find what's comfortable for you. But there we go. There's sort of a pelvis. And you just get used to drawing those over and over again. And then you can simplify it even more when you go to, you know, actually draw a character. So these are the shapes. And remember, in between here, I'm drawing this in purple, so hopefully you guys can see it. This is where your flesh, your stomach is. And when you start drawing characters, this is the area, this purple area, that is going to twist or bend. That's the area. So you want to, again, kind of understand that. That's the area there. So there's another technique that I'd like to kind of show you here too. It's something that a lot of the Disney animators used to use, and it just, again, it simplifies this whole torso pelvis strategy, right? The other thing you want to do, and let me move this guy out of the way. I'll just move him over here. And let's draw some more. Is, again, practice with the simpler shape. So this is your grab another layer here. Practice your 3/4 view of the rib cage. And again, it's like an egg. I keep saying like an egg, but it just reminds me of like this egg shape here. And your rib kind of has this upward tilt towards it. When you're standing just, you know, when you're standing kind of straight up and down, your rib cage has sort of a upwards tilt to it. That's why you see me drawing it with that upwards tilt. So that's something to sort of, again, be aware of as you draw. And that's why you see me drawing it sort of with this tilt. But if you don't want to draw this down here, the rib cage, and you want to, again, simplify it even more, use just this basic shape here. You can even draw a neck in there if that helps. Sometimes that helps me. Say, okay, here's the neck. Right? We're not worrying about the head. We're not worrying about the face, just the torso. And this is the front of the torso. And we're going to draw the pelvis here. And the pelvis kind of is a little back further. It's not directly under. That's one thing you don't want to do. You don't want to go straight up and down. You want to give your characters a bit of a curve. So if this is the rib cage, your pelvis is slightly, you know, here, or maybe your pelvis is slightly here, and you're giving your character some dynamic motion. We're going to talk about that in another stream when we talk about figure drawing, how to draw the dynamic figures. Right now, we're just talking about the figure itself. How do you draw the actual figure, the basic shapes of that figure? But once we have that down, probably next stream we'll go over, okay, now that we have these shapes down, these two shapes, how do we draw them in dynamic poses? So practice these sort of shapes. And they're not going to be perfect, right? You guys know that. I've listened to you enough in our drawing clubs that you guys understand that art is a process. So it definitely won't be perfect. And I just like to draw in the rib cage, I mean the fleshy area here, right? So that's one pose. Let's do that. And this is what we've talked about this before when we get bored. A lot of times we don't find inspiration. I know from me personally, there are times where I absolutely have no inspiration to draw anything. And that's probably more times than I actually do. So more often than not, I don't feel inspired to draw. So what do I do with that time? This is the stuff I practice, guys. I pick up my sketch pad, I pick up my iPad or whatever, and I might be on the couch with something on the TV, or I might be just listening to music, and I'll just practice. We talked about this in the club, and sometimes when you're just bored and you're just doodling, you get these bursts of inspiration, or as you're drawing and practicing, you realize something, go, whoa, okay, now I get it. Now I know how to draw that. So there is value in just drawing, just practicing these drawings and going, okay, so the fleshy part's in the middle here. This is the stomach. All right, and that is our 3/4 view. Now, maybe we want to practice the side view. What would that side view look like? I'm going to color in the neck up here too. That's not part of the... All right, so let's take these shapes and practice. So, this is our 3/4. Let's do a side view. What is that side view going to look like? So let's do this. It kind of curves. Your neck kind of curves. And those are the subtle things to notice, are the curves. And remember, the rib cage kind of curves up a little bit if you're in a standing position. So this is kind of like the curve. And your neck is out here. Now some of you are like, whoa, that looks like kind of a big hunch that you're giving. Yeah, maybe. You'd have to kind of wait to see the rest of the design to see that. And then let's put the torso here. I'm sorry, the pelvis here. All right, and then you're going to see a lot more of the side of the leg. Like this. A lot more of the side of the leg. All right. We'll just kind of shade that a little bit because that's the leg. We don't see the leg, it's just shaded there. And again, let's grab the fleshy part here is in the middle. We're grabbing this. We'll shade that a little bit. Let's grab the lighter color to fill this in just so we can see. Oops. We fill that in. We'll fill it in up here too. Grab that darker color. Fill that in. So that's a side view. Not much to look at, but again, when we talk about wanting to draw dynamic characters or tell a story with our characters, we need to be able to position the characters in all of these different ways. Let's try a back view. What's that back view going to look like? Let's move some of these out of the way. Or at least move them up a little bit. Here we go. All right, so let's go on to the back view. So, get my brush here, come here. All right. Draw on the rib cage. So always, again, it's always an egg shape. It's always an egg. It's always this weird egg shape. It's not exactly an egg, but it's an egg shape. We have this egg shape of the back. And I know some of you are thinking what I used to think when I started sort of following this technique with one of, my comic book artists that I follow, is that doesn't look like the upper body of a person. It will. So again, next lesson, maybe either the next lesson or the lesson after that, you're going to see how we add the shoulders in the chest. It's almost like putting a jacket onto this egg shape, this top part of your torso, right? The rib cage. We put jackets on, and we put different jackets on. So you'll see that. So Remember, this is a process, and you got to trust the process. So we're just talking about these very basic shapes of the rib cage and the pelvis to get this torso. So this is the back. We're just drawing the back here. Comes out, curves in a little bit. We see a little bit of the legs here. We'll shade those in. We have the line coming down the back. Line coming down the back here. I just like to draw some contour lines just so we can see that it curves. All right. And again, we're going to come back and say, okay, look, there's the fleshy part. Notice one of the things that you notice automatically from this side view, look at how little of the fleshy area you actually see from the back view. So again, that's something as an artist to just pay attention to when you're drawing these poses. Color, let's color that in. Some of you are like, why do you color in all these spots? I just like to, sometimes I like to see where my characters can twist and turn. So when I start building out characters, it's just a visual control for me. Visual control means that I don't have to look at my notes. I don't have to read anything. I can visually look at it and go, those are the parts that can move. The neck has a lot of range of movement, right? You can move your neck around a lot. So that can tell a story. You know, if you got your neck out, you know, hey, what do you want to fight? Or you got your neck down, you're sad, you're looking up. So there's a lot you can tell just by sort of the movement of the neck. Same with the torso. So I like to keep those different colors. Again, you'll come up with your own systems, but that's why I do it. And then we're going to twist it again, another 3/4 view, but this time instead of a 3/4 view from the front, we're going to do a 3/4 view from the back. So let's say this is the back view. So let's do a 3/4. From the back. So this kind of twists down. You can see this kind of just curves up the back view, but now as we're turning, you can see the downward slope of the neck a little bit more. And this egg shape here. Right? Pelvis kind of slopes down a little bit. Right? Because you can see in this 3/4 view, it slopes down. Pelvis is sloping down. Right? This, I don't think we sloped it down enough. We probably should have sloped it down even more, but it slopes down. Right? So that should slope down. So as we start turning, we don't see the slope on the back, but as we start turning back around, this is 3/4 back view. We start seeing the slope again, just a little bit. All right. We'll see the leg over here. You see the back here. Oops. There we go. So start curving out this way, and then we come back this way, and you can barely see this leg over here. So I'm going to shade that in there, and we got it. This leg over here we can see a lot more of. Right? So we're going to see a lot more of this leg here, so we'll shade that. And again, you can kind of see the slope. Kind of see the slope here. All right, and then I like drawing the back line just to kind of see where everything lines up. Some contour lines. Here's the neck again here. And then let's draw that torso again. Let's use that darker color there for the outline of the torso. Again, you can't really see a lot of the torso on this 3/4 view. Like, again, look at that front view, 3/4. You can see a lot of the torso there. Here you can't. or I'm sorry, a lot of the fleshy area. So those are the different views using this technique to draw that torso. And I want to reiterate, let's move this again. The two shapes that we sort of began with. Let's move, let's edit, scale, let's get this guy out of the way. Maybe put these up here, make them about the same size. There we go. All right, so what have we been doing? Well, we've been, again, drawing a torso. You have these very basic shapes of a torso. And if you want, you can just practice this. Here it is. Here's the egg shape. Here's the egg shape. All right. This is the egg shape, and maybe draw a little neck up here. And then if you want to draw the torso, practice drawing the pelvis, practice drawing the pelvis down here. Right? And it's funny, when you look at the lines of the pelvis, they kind of flare out a little bit, and then your legs come here. Right? And then you can draw your fleshy stomach area here. I just like to color that area in. And you can see a lot of the times, I still do the mistake. I kind of make the upper part a little too long. And I still have that issue, and you just gotta be aware of it. But that's the basic shape you want to work with, right there. That's the shape, and we'll get into that a little bit more as we talk about just how to create dynamic poses with, you know, some of these characters that you guys want to create. And we'll talk about that a little bit more next stream, the actual figure drawing, pose drawing. But right now we'll stop there for this stream. Remember the egg shape, you want to practice drawing that upper torso, what you see here, and I'll turn this so you guys can see everything. There. Those are the basic shapes that you start with when we start talking about building the body. Building, and I like using that term building because we're artists, but again, we're taking all of these very complex things, a head, a face, the body, the rib cage, the pelvis, and we're sort of breaking everything apart into these smaller pieces and then putting them back together. Right? And then once we get really good at breaking it apart, putting them back together, then we start exaggerating parts. Right? That's when the character design really comes in. When you get really comfortable with these basic shapes, these basic designs, right? This egg shape for your rib cage, and then that pelvis design right underneath. And then everything in between is that fleshy area, your stomach area, where you can twist and turn. That's the big takeaway, are those two areas. Those are rigid, meaning they don't move, that's bone. And then they're connected by this soft area, your stomach area, which is how we all move and flex around. Very important concept as we move towards our next episode, which is creating these dynamic poses and twisting and turning our characters. But we'll get into that next time, guys. I hope you like this. I hope this helps a little bit. Feel free to leave me comments if you need some help. Feel free to, if you have something you want me to go over, that's one thing I do want you guys to reach out to me. If for some reason I'm not getting to something that you're interested in learning, drop me an email, drop me a comment, and let me know. And we can have maybe a special stream edition specifically on that topic. Because who knows, if you have that question, I'm sure everybody else or at least somebody else has that same question. All right, guys, until next time, I will see you next week. Bye, everybody.